And it's an enormous waste of time. It's incredibly inconvenient. I think also, are they not planning to sort of bribe some civil servants to move to Manchester by paying them the London living wage? Or the London uplift. I just think that this is I think this is incredibly superficial. What's the structural difference that Number 10 North is supposed to be making?
I'm Ed Vaizey, and we're going to be unpacking the politics of the day from the opening of Number 10 North, why comedians are the early big winners of the Burnham era, and which world leaders have been bragging about only having a couple of hours sleep every night. With me in the studio are two people worth staying up for. I don't write this
Staying
stuff.
up to 11 a.m. anyway.
I don't write this stuff. Stay up till late in the evening. Alys Denby, the opinion and features editor at City AM.
Hello.
And the premature veteran writer for The Times, Patrick Kidd.
What's a premature veteran?
I'm prematurely veteran.
You spoke before I introduced you, Patrick.
I see.
You just couldn't wait.
I thought you just meant I was prematurely veteran.
You couldn't wait to get going, because the stories that we're going to discuss today are so all-consuming. Let's start with Number 10 North. Sorry, I've really put off half my listeners. Andy Burnham is working out of Number 10 North for the first time today to chair an economic meeting about devolution. He plans to work there once a week and bring 300 civil servants with him by the end of the year. It's like a sort of medieval monarch, isn't it? The Cabinet Office Minister, Sally Jameson, spoke to Times Radio Breakfast.
It's definitely not a gimmick, and I think that this is something that Andy himself feels very passionately about, and actually so do many of us who for a long time have felt that the grip of power has been too tightly held in Whitehall, and this is a really important step forward in seeing a change in that.
Well, I know how this is going to go. I'm going to ask Alys about it, and she's going to give me her enthusiastic endorsement.
Yes, this is a great idea. I mean, nothing says it's not a gimmick like having to say
That's exactly what I thought.
I don't think this is going to last very long. I just look, it's just inconvenient. Like you have to have your civil servants in London. That's where everything is. It's the capital of our country. And also, personally, I dislike this kind of anti-London agenda Andy Burnham seems to be pursuing. London is, like I say, it's our capital city, it's our economic engine, it contributes 20% of our GDP. I don't see the advantage of moving stuff away from it.
Softy southerner Alys Denby has walked right into Andy Burnham's trap, hasn't she, Patrick? Describing the North as inconvenient, that sums it up.
Well, I'm glad that you stopped doing your Alan Bennett impersonation. I can see the merit of moving full-time certain officers, perhaps, but
as they move part of the Treasury to Darlington.
Indeed, but the idea that everyone just pops up for one day a week. So one of the complaints about the European Union is that they all decamp from Brussels to Strasbourg the whole time, and the expense. I mean, putting 300 civil servants and ministers on trains once a week—that's going to have a cost.
Special train.
A special train.
One that runs on time.
A tram.
Like the Royal train.
Or the bus. He'll put them all on a bus.
Oh, no.
He's very keen on buses. I mean, so I can see... I love the idea that the area of Manchester they're moving to is called New Islington, by the way. That's a way of... It is genuinely, and has been since the early 19th century, called New Islington. So the Blairites were like that. But it seems pandering, as you say, a gimmick. But, if he wants to move whole departments, fine, but that's going to have repercussions for people's family life and stuff like that.
You sparked a couple of thoughts in my head, which is rare.
Wow.
Gosh.
The first is, you're the first person to make, as far as I'm aware, the comparison with Brussels to Strasbourg. I think that is a very pertinent point, Alys, because, of course, when we were members of the EU, the Brexiteers would all bang on about the pointless expense. And, of course, the Brussels-Strasbourg divide was a purely political decision because the Belgians and the French couldn't decide the HQ of the EU, so they split the difference. But it cost hundreds of millions of pounds every year.
And it's an enormous waste of time. It's incredibly inconvenient. I think also, are they not planning to sort of bribe some civil servants to move to Manchester by paying them the London living wage or the London uplift? I just think that this is I think this is incredibly superficial. What's the structural difference that Number 10 North is supposed to be making? And I think I think a lot of people's criticism of government is that it's too siloed, it's not joined up enough. Physically separating branches of it doesn't seem like the way to solve that.
There's an element of vibe about it, which I can sort of meet them halfway on that. That it weirdly, I mean, it sounds an odd thing to say, but television pictures that regularly come from Manchester to remind people there are other parts of the country, not just London, I think is a good thing. But it also reminds me of my time as a minister, and this is sort of slightly embarrassing. We used to, I used to say, let's get out of London and go somewhere like Manchester, and then we'd invite the sort of heads of all the relevant quangos, and of course they were all based in London. So 30 people would get on a train, come and have a meeting with me in Manchester, and then we'd all go back. And I was genuinely embarrassed by that.
Yeah, remember there's a scene in one of the Yes Minister episodes where he's wanting to move the Ministry of Defence up north, isn't it? And the head of the Chief of the Defence Staff is saying, but the wives don't want to be further away from Wimbledon and Glyndebourne and things like that. The BBC has tried to move its staff to Manchester for quite some time, to Salford.
Yeah.
But what they found is that it means they're doing an awful lot of broadcast down the line because the guests don't want to come up to Manchester to do it.
You've also reminded me, Patrick, of another very important point. Whatever we discuss, there's always a Yes Minister episode. Now let's talk about the other great point that Andy Burnham is making, because his devolution agenda is all about undoing 40 years of neoliberalism. Now let's ask Alys. And again, I'll just make a prediction. Alys is going to be cheering from the rafters. We have waited 40 years for someone to call out this neoliberalism experiment.
Why do you invite me on here if you just predict everything I'm going to say? It's so boring.
Well, I've actually read your article.
Yes, look, neoliberalism is not look, I've worked for the last 7 years at a free market think tank and at a pro-business newspaper, and I've never heard anybody who believes in the kind of moral benefits of capitalism describe themselves as a neoliberal. It's a term that only critics use. I think that Andy Burnham is talking about this because he has come to power in this kind of bloodless coup. So he's just telling the Labour Party exactly what it wants to hear, and a certain kind of Labour Party as well that's got this kind of narrative that Thatcher was the great enemy who deindustrialised the North, and that all we need to do is go back to the kind of 70s. But the idea that we live in some sort of like untrammelled free market economy is completely for the birds. We have the highest tax burden since the Second World War. We have, endlessly expanding regulatory estate. Any business would tell you that all they want is for the government to get out of their way. So I'm not sure what he's talking about when he talks about undoing neoliberalism, apart from just kind of a sort of ancient socialist talking point. And also, it doesn't seem very progressive to me to talk about a kind of 40-year-old grievance.
And also, I think if you translate neoliberalism into Thatcherism, there's a strong argument that Thatcherism, the gains of Thatcherism, if you believe there are gains, and I do, have been undone in the last 20 years anyway, Patrick, as Alys said.
Yeah, it is catnip, as Alys is rightly saying. And bashing Thatcher is now taking every opportunity to attack a woman who left office 35 plus, where's my math, 37 years ago, and died 13 years ago. It strikes me as very odd looking backwards. But there is economic deprivation in London as much as in the North, but you wander around the high streets and you see why Reform were getting support, because people felt hopeless. And during the local elections, I went to some of those constituencies and you could just see vape shops everywhere and no actual sign of local business communities. So he's got to address that, but I don't think he addresses it by just saying neoliberalism bad, Thatcherism bad. He addresses it by spending some money.
Except to say that, as kind of Alys indicated, it's shorthand for, the market economy is out of control. Whether or not you agree with that, how does someone like Kemi Badenoch, Alys, take this on? Does she just defend Thatcherism? Is that where kind of Andy Burnham wants her to be?
Yeah, I suppose he wants to kind of tread that divide, because obviously Thatcher is a divisive figure, especially, as I say, in those kind of northern areas which became deindustrialised. But actually, if you look at the success of Manchester, its undeniable growth, it wasn't it wasn't about unwinding 40 years of neoliberalism. Right. It was about moving from industrial jobs into service jobs and attracting loads of foreign direct investment. That sounds quite neoliberal to me. And as for Kemi, look, Conservatives have to be the party of business, and they have to be the party of free markets. Otherwise, what are they for?
Absolutely. What do you think?
I don't disagree, of course. I think the economy is where the next election is going to be fought. And if Kemi Badenoch and Mel Stride, or whoever ends up being the shadow chancellor going into the election, can put forward a proper way in which they're going to stimulate growth and aspiration, rather than just sort of tinkering at the we'll give you a 10p off this and that, then they have a real chance.
Anyway, our discussion has gone down incredibly well. Mike has texted from Wigan. Guess what he said? Oh my God, you bunch of soft southern shandy drinking southern wusses. The world does not revolve around London. The majority of the population is not in London, thank God. You need to realise that these are much more skilled individuals who will deliver than you rotund.
Yeah.
Is he watching us on YouTube, Patrick?
Probably. I don't think he's talking
Who
about
are you
Alice.
talking about?
Rotund southerners. And Tracy points out that her clever husband, my husband made the Brussels-Strasbourg connection ages ago. He's very clever, says Tracy from Cambridgeshire. Maybe her husband is a particle physicist in Cambridge, and that's what makes him clever. And Jan says, I've been waiting for someone to mention the Strasbourg connection. It's the first thing I thought of. So many things. And then Carol, bloody southerners whinging. Am I allowed to say bloody?
Can I riposte to your Wiganites whinging about Southerners? Just say that every single London worker is 30% more productive than any other worker in the country. So we're not lazy and soft. We're actually just harder working.
Consider the gauntlet thrown.
And I don't drink shandy, I drink Timothy Taylor's, and that's from Keighley.
Yeah, so there you go. You can put that in your Wigan pipe and smoke it.
There is a valid point, of course, that the North should not be neglected, and has been. But I'm just not sure that the gimmick of sending Whitehall up there one day a week is a great use of money.